Many of you must have heard about the incidents that are happening in Nigeria, and many are worried. Many want to hear exactly the true story or the true state of things. Excuse me. So, once again, welcome. I'm Christiana. I'm a sister of the Daughters of Mary, Mother of Mercy, and I work here in Germany, and I teach. I'm a teacher by profession. So, here with me on the panel is a Reverend Father Dr. Sylvester Joma. He's a pastoral theologian and the head of the English Mission Calais. Actually, he provided the opportunity and the space that we're using for this particular program. It is the main idea behind Ikoro Forum. Ikoro Forum is an association that gathered a number of people with Igbo origin in Nigeria to promote and advocate for issues concerning the Igbos. Igbos by association, Igbos by birth, and Igbos by identification. And right directly by my side is Dr. Mike Unaji, who is a medical consultant at the Charité Hospital in Berlin. He's a specialist in the internal medicine. On my left here is Nnemeka Apa. Nnemeka Apa is a medical physicist. All of them with me here studied in Germany. We have an important personnel online, Dr. Franklin Ogunweze. Dr. Franklin Ogunweze is the director and the head of the Department for Prevention of Genocide in Africa. He's working with the Christian International Solidarity, Switzerland and Frankfurt. Dr. Ogunweze has already worked with the Human Rights Watch. He has done so much on this area with regards to freedom of religion in Nigeria and the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. He has written also many reports. So he is our, let's say, our guest speaker in this discussion. So you're welcome, Dr. Ogunweze.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And good evening to all of you on the panel.
So I welcome also those who are online. Please forgive us for starting late. There's a lot of technical issues here that we needed to deal with. But hopefully we're able to solve it. So welcome once again to this important conversation. And we begin with Dr. Ogunweze, who's online. You've done a lot regarding to the killings going on in Nigeria, the murders. First of all, can you just give us a brief picture of what this gloomy situation is all about? You have the statistics of people who have been killed. You have some of these stories with you. You have written on them. Can you just give us a brief presentation of the situation, the description of what is going on there with regards to the killings of Christians in Nigeria? Thank you very much, Dr. Ogunweze.
Well, thank you very much, sister. And like I said, once again, good evening to the panel. Nigeria is one of the most strategic countries we have in Africa. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Great. But the Nigerian government seems to be supervising a genocide against Christians and minorities right from the middle belt of Nigeria, where almost every other day, Christians and natives are slaughtered in their homes. It's a massacre, it's a demographic displacement. And the people, the culprits are the Fulani herdsmen. But prior to that, we have to know that Boko Haram and Islamic State for West Africa has already colonized northeast of Nigeria. And we have over 2 million people who are internally displaced in their own country, Nigeria. Many of them are in camps. And many Easterners that were driven away from these places and in no camps, they have to go home to their relatives and friends in the south of Nigeria. So they are not even a part of the number. And then Nigeria, the southwest of Nigeria, that used to be a very peaceful place. We saw what happened on the Pentecost Sunday in Owo, in Ondo State. Peaceful worshippers who were praying to their God on a Pentecost Sunday, the day that the Christian church came into being. They were slaughtered on their knees, praying. That is just a tip of the iceberg. Do we need to say what the Fulani or the bandits are doing in central Nigeria? Kaduna State, to be precise, is a place where almost every other day Christians are being killed in their homes, and the governor looks on and he doesn't do anything. What he specializes in doing is attacking people who criticize that state of affairs. And we have to see what's happened in Sokoto State on the 22nd of May this year, where a young girl, Deborah Samuel Yakubu, was lynched by her fellow students. This is a university where people are taught to become teachers. Her fellow students lynched her based on an allegation of blasphemy. That is Nigeria for you. We have to remember, we have to keep in mind that in 1999, when Nigeria returned to democracy after donkey years under military dictatorship, the very first thing that what I may refer to the Islamic principalities and powers did to actually scuttle a Christian, whom they thought was a Christian president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was to introduce Sharia in the whole of northern Nigeria. And this Sharia was to apply to everybody, irrespective of the religion they belong to. If not for the struggle of a lot of people that we raised serious alarm to that effect, that reduced the impacts of this. Even at that today, if you go to Kano, the recent information we are getting is that the Hizbah, that is the Islamic police, have said they are going to start moderating what is happening online. So they are going to start censoring people online and then punishing people for that, for what they say online. We have to equally know that Christians don't receive permission to build their churches in the north of Nigeria anymore. Okay? To renovate their churches, no permission. And men and women are not supposed to be driving in the same taxi or in the same buses in Kano. And to buy alcohol in Kano or to sell it in any of these Sharia states in northern Nigeria is a crime. That somebody spoke out. The allegation was that Deborah Yakubu spoke against the prophet. Nobody has given us a proof to that effect till today, but this woman is dead already. And Christians in Nigeria are supposed to live under that. And today we are now hearing the controversy that APC, a party in Nigeria, is planning on a Muslim ticket. They want two Muslims to occupy the office of the president and the vice president of Nigeria. And this is generating serious controversy and fears among many Nigerian Christians in the South. A lot of people are feeling this is a way they want to capture power at the center so that they will now Islamize Nigeria for good. And there are reasons for those fears. The reasons are not far-fetched. The Fulani military are killing people throughout the Benue Basin, that's not central, and the middle belt of Nigeria. They are even down south, slaughtering people. The Nigerian government, instead of trying to put a stop to this, they are very busy focusing on people who are agitating for a better life in the south of Nigeria. As I am talking to you, the Nigerian security apparatus is wholly concentrated in the east of Nigeria, where they are attacking young people who are called themselves IPOB, and they are slaughtering them every other day. And cameras are not even allowed. But the Fulani headsmen, they are being chaperoned, they are being supervised. Just do your killing and then nothing happens. Since Nigeria began, we have never had anybody sued to or prosecuted before the courts of law for killing Christians in Nigeria. So which is to say, Nigeria has told Christians, your lives are not worth anything and that you are second-class citizens in your own country. So we can see the tendency, the trajectory of all this is that whoever is financing this wants to offset a religious war in Nigeria. And anybody who looks at history will understand that no country has ever survived a religious war, none. Because this is where people become blind, to rationality and then take up flags of faith and then go on to kill their brothers for nothing because of their beliefs. So this is a very terrible situation. We don't need to talk about the general climate of insecurity and fear. No Nigerian is safe. We are not safe in our homes. A visit to Nigeria will show you that. The way we build our houses, architecture tells you how people live. We build beautiful houses, but we barricade ourselves with walls as high as the Berlin Wall. We go on our roads. We are not even safe anymore. We are hijacked and kidnapped in our homes. Even a Methodist archbishop was kidnapped in south of Nigeria. Where are we safe? In our churches to pray. People are slaughtered in a war for praying. Where are we safe? Where are Nigerians safe anymore? And we have a sitting president. We have a parliament. We have governors. And Nigerians have lost faith. And what are the consequences of this? Our young people don't see any leeway anymore. They don't see, they are hopeless. There is no perspective anymore. Those who are rich or those who can afford it, get out of the situation, immigrate to foreign countries. Those who cannot, trek from Nigeria through the Sahara to Libya, where many of them are auctioned off as slaves, and to come to Europe for a comfortable slavery. And 1% of Nigerians are still managing 85% of all the wealth in Nigeria. These guys are the ones that fly in helicopters or go with a retinue of hangers on, and policemen are attached to them. So the ordinary Nigerian is left to his devices. There is nobody to save him. That's why he prays so much, praying to the God of salvation. He's looking up to the mountain for where his help should come. So because our country has failed, Nigeria is so dysfunctional that it seems to be created for the maximum inconvenience of her citizens. So this is what every Nigerian, it affects every Nigerian everywhere, even those in the diaspora, because we lose loved ones at home. You cannot even go home. If you're planning to go to Nigeria, you will be planning, you will be thinking, am I going to be kidnapped? Where can a country develop where there is insecurity? Nowhere. Because insecurity is what makes investors to come in and say, we are certain that if we invest our money here, that there wouldn't be a social disruption that would make our capital take flight. But as we can see, our leaders have not been thinking. And then Nigeria is going to hell in a handbasket. So the insecurity is a very worrying situation. The Christian persecution is now open. The government of Nigeria is supervising a genocide against Christians and minorities. We have seen that. And they have no excuse, because a government that has the monopoly of violence, that cannot control the security or provide security for the lives and property of our citizens, has failed. That is the raison d'etre of every government: provision of life, security for lives and property. And Nigeria has failed totally here. So this is what we are seeing across board. And young Nigerians today are now rising up in a very quiet political revolution, trying to say that we want to vote somebody who thinks about the future of Nigeria, not all these old guards that gave us Buhari, who is sitting there and supervising genocide, or the other people who have stolen Nigeria blind. Okay. These guys are now trying to take over their countries themselves. So
we'll come to that.
Let me stop here for now.
Yes, we'll come to that a little bit. We'll come just to that. Talking about minorities, Christian minorities, I want to ask Dr. Sylvester, are Christians in Nigeria, are they in minority? Or what is the ratio between the Muslims and Christians in Nigeria? In your own calculation?
Yeah, when we talk about statistics and numbers, minority could be understood in various forms. Minority in terms of who has the power, and minority in terms of number. If we go by statistics, what they tell us is the number of Christians and the number of Muslims, we can even have 50-50. Depending on what part of Nigeria you are. Now we have the northern part as, of course, in a very good way, a good number of them are Muslims. You go to the southwest, you have a mixture of Christians and Muslims living in the same environment. If you go to the southeast, you have predominantly Christians in good numbers. Now, but if we look at the statistics, we can see, okay, right, the numbers could be 50-50. But minority, the concept of minority has a lot of ideas behind it. Is, do you actually have power? Now, some people could say, okay, give me a basket of numbers of opportunities, but give me one basket of power. So it means who is taking the law, who is at the back of all of this. If I collaborate with what Dr. Franklin said, he said the government is supervising the genocide, is supervising the killing, which could be who is at the back, who are the masculites playing against the Christian movement in Nigeria. It's not a thing of numbers. If we talk about numbers, of course, Christians are of great majority. We have a good number of Christians. But if you talk about who has the power, who has the access to weapon, Christians do not have that. So if you understand minority in this terms as who is at the authority, who has the power, or in terms of numbers, then we can now begin to play the logic. But I think minority at numbers, no, we have a good number of Christians in Nigeria. Minority are those who are at the decision-making level as part of the power. Then that's why the issue comes in. And that is why if we bring into religion plays a whole big role in the politics of Nigeria. And that is where the problem is. Who is having power?
So, I mean, you are correct.
Let me correct something I threw into the mix without explaining it.
Okay.
When I said Christians and minorities, Christians are not in the minority, actually. We have close to 100 million Nigerians that are Christians. What Dr. Ajun was said is absolutely right. When you look at the statistics, it's 45% each way between Christians and Muslims, and we have 10% of Nigerians who are African traditional worshippers, and they are atheists and agnostics are virtually non-existent. It's not that they are not in existence, but they are. So we have 10% that African traditional worshippers, and both major religions are on an equal footing. But you will see some statistics online that try to cook the books and tell you that Muslims are 52% of Nigeria, which is not true. If you ask them, give us the criteria or the framework from which you guys were able to derive this, they wouldn't be able to tell you that. Okay? So that's where the problem lies. They wouldn't tell you that. And then, but the Christians are not in the minority. But the minority I meant are the people in the central Nigeria. They are minority tribes, the Biroms, the Bakos. These people are being driven off their land. They are being slaughtered every other day by Fulani herdsmen. We don't even read that in the news because the Nigerian government is not doing anything, and no NGOs are not working in those places. If you go to the Benue Basin, it's still the same. The governor of Benue State, Autumn, told my organization that these guys are slaughtering his people every other day. And we could have heard Theophilus Danjuma, who was a general in the Nigerian army. He told his people, he's from the Middle Belt, he told his people, you guys should rise up and defend yourselves, that the government is not there to defend you because the killings have been killing one too many. Not only that, Governor Autumn has told his people, rise up and defend yourselves. And the Southwest governors came together to say, these guys are all over our forests, so we have to establish our own police to take care of our own people. That's how Amotekun came into being. So all over Nigeria, they are raised this feeling that the government is just watching as Fulani headsmen are running over the whole place. And they believe that they have jihadistic inclinations to that effect.
Thank you very much. That is why you called it a supervised genocide.
Yes.
I hold on that word. I will still come back to you with respect to the status of Nigeria in terms of its secular status and how this religion thing is playing out in Nigeria. But I want to go to Dr. Mike, who is a medical practitioner. I read a book called Anatomy of Human Destruction, okay? And it is written by one psychotherapist called Eric Fromm. And in this book, he brought in history, men and women who grew up to become violent and could kill people without thinking of their lives, like it's nothing to them. And in that book, he was like trying to talk about some psychological transformation, which of course had a lot to do with the society, the social formation, the training of the child before the child became an adult, as a medical practitioner. How will you look at this brutal violent killings going on in Nigeria with respect to the perpetrators of this crime. Though they are religiously minded actions or activities or events, but do you think can you somehow say that these people are somehow psychologically deranged? Or do you think that they are, that is in the right frame of mind carrying out these activities?
Well, thank you very much. Well, it is my mind. A saying goes, you cannot reason with a religious person. I mean, we talked about statistics just now. I don't think it's numbers, I say, that matter, but the fervor, the enthusiasm with which we worship. Muslims are much more fervent than Christians. I can't imagine a Christian killing just because somebody insulted Jesus Christ. Never heard of it. So I think it's a major difference if we're discussing about numbers and statistics concerning Christians and Muslims. And I feel just like Dr. Frank has already implied, Nigeria, I don't know when you talk about the failed state, Nigeria is actually a failed state, where you can no longer guarantee or safeguard people's rights. Yeah? And one of the issues driving this to killing, I believe, is lack of opportunities. When you don't have a future to look forward to, you become desperate, you're ready to kill. Human beings don't mean anything to human life, doesn't mean anything to you. So I think Nigeria needs intervention from outside because we are failed. I was reading a book the other day about how liberal democracies came about in Europe. We should also try to contextualize the war, religious war going on in Nigeria. We had it in Europe for 30 years. So I think my anger is, why have we failed to jump on the bandwagon of progress and technology since the world is connected? Why have we failed? That's boggles my mind. Europe went through a test. So they saw that the fear of violent death was much more stronger than any religious belief. That's why these institutions came about. Parliament, the courts, separation of powers. Because they wanted to safeguard human life, but it was precious. I think maybe we're in the stage where Europe was in the 17th century. Maybe we'll get there one day, but it seems we're not making steps towards that direction. Like I said, in one word, in answer to the question, Nigeria is a failed state. That's the way.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have now a failed state, we have supervised genocide, and we have a definition, a powerful definition of minority. And then I talked to Nneka, a young man. I'm not sure how many old you were when you. Okay, so Nneka, you're a young man, leaving the shores of Nigeria to come over to Germany to study, and I think you're married, family here. So what does it look like? How does it appeal to you as a young man, looking at Nigeria and how the life of younger people are wasted every day? Looking back, seeing that even parents don't have life doesn't mean anything. People are no longer safe, like Dr. Franklin said. People go out and come back with fears. They carry their hearts on their mind every day.
Thank you very much, sister. As a young man, Nigeria, looking at the young ones, I was listening to, that was last week, to one of the presidential aspirants. And in the program, one person called in from London and asked, do Nigerians still believe in Nigeria as a country? For him, he concluded as a young man that he doesn't believe in Nigeria. That's no hope. For a young man to say that, that means he called himself, he just said, yeah, I'm in a better place. but he doesn't believe in a country where he originated. It's pathetic. It's like going back to all these problems that are being raised in Nigeria because the problem has to do with the youths, for example, they are out of school. The schools, the universities are not exceptions. So in this case, what will the youth do? They have to look for survival. They are not even sure of what they are going to get, how they are going to feed tomorrow. So in this kind of situation, youths don't believe somebody could just wake up in the morning and say, so they are fighting for their survival. They need to survive. So we just believe that the kind of revolution that the youths are trying to come up with and pushing, that we will be able to get there. But for now, the youths are not. They don't believe in it.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Franklin, you are a lawyer. So now the next question I'm trying to you is the status of Nigeria. The Constitution said that Nigeria is a secular state. Okay? So, but still, we find these problems. We talk about Islamization, enforcing Sharia law, and all that. How does that conflict with that status of Nigeria, the provision of freedom of religion in Nigeria, and that status of Nigeria as a secular state? What would you have to say?
Well, thank you very much. The point is, well, let's not mix a lot of things here. The freedom of religion is a fundamental human right. It was enshrined by the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights in 1948. So Nigeria ratified that and included it in her constitution, which you see going from chapter 31, from 30 downwards. You will see either 32 or so, I cannot remember now. But Article 10, or Section 10 of the Nigerian Constitution says Nigeria shall not have any state religion. It's enshrined there, it's provided for in the Constitution. Nigeria should not have any state religion. And that's the reason why the move that was made in 1986 under the administration of Ibrahim Babangida, where Nigeria was smuggled into the OIC, that is the Organization of Islamic Countries, is a clear violation of our constitution. But because it was done under a military regime, Nigeria is still a member, but nobody raises these issues anymore because people thought that if we keep quiet, people must have forgotten. And then again, that 12 northern states rose up and introduced Sharia in their penal code, stands in violation of this Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. But the issue is, people will start asking, but Sharia has been a part of the traditional law that we inherited from the theocratic structure that was existing in the north of Nigeria after the jihad of 1804 by Uthman Dan Fodio. Yes. When the British came, they introduced a kind of indirect rule in northern Nigeria. It succeeded because they had this theocratic structure and they used it to rule the people. But in the south and in the east of Nigeria, it didn't succeed. The Easterners, the Igbos majorly, rose against the Warren chieftaincy system. They never wanted it. That was one of the things that led to the 1929 About Women's riots. Okay, so, but when Nigeria became a country, or became independent in 1960, and then in 1978, there was the Constituent Assembly that was constituted to draft the 1979 Constitution. There was a very notable thing that happened during the drafting process of that Constitution. The northern delegates staged a walkout of the 1978 Constituent Assembly because of the Sharia question. They wanted Sharia to become a part of the laws in northern Nigeria. The rest of the country rejected that and they walked out. So, and that was what that Article 10 that was initially taken over from 1979 was there to do, that there should not be a state religion in Nigeria. But in 1999, as Obasanjo became president, during our transition to civil rule, the force was too much. They united, and then one state after the other, starting from Zamfara, that was a very poor state, introduced Sharia every other northern state, even in states where Christians are in the majority, rushed in Sharia, even in Jos, even in Plateau State, where majority are Christians, they rushed this in. Like Father Sylvester said, it's all about power. And it seems that Christians are not even united. They don't know what solidarity means. Because if something happens to a Muslim anywhere, and you will see all of them talking about something happening to the Ummah, and they tell them this in their mosques, that every Muslim is your brother. But Christians, we are so divided in Nigeria that we cannot even provide a common front. Go to Christian Association of Nigeria. The kind of politics they play is a very destructive one. They don't even think about fellow Christians. The Pentecostals want to be preeminent. The Catholics too, or the established traditional churches. So, and then we lose that idea of solidarity, of coming to the aid of our brothers in need, even if they are not our direct blood brothers. So this is something that we should learn from the Muslims, to be our brother's keeper. It's a Christian doctrine that we should be our brother's keeper. It's our tradition, but that's not what we are not doing that at the ethical, at the general level in Nigeria. Is to your thanks, O Israel. Everybody becomes a pastor tomorrow and wants to create his own little empire, buy private jets, and don't even care about what happens to the ordinary Nigerian, whom he fleeces every other day of his hard-earned meager resources. So Christians should do more. That Sharia was introduced is because there was disunity among Christians in Nigeria. That I can tell you on excellent authority. Because if the Christians were united when they started, they wouldn't have dared to do that. We will have reason to defend our constitution, because we all agreed to that Nigeria should not have any state religion. But in clear violation of that, Sharia was introduced all over northern Nigeria, and we watched and we did nothing.
Thank you so much for that. I'll still come back to you, Dr. Mueze, on that particular issue of the Begomo statutes, what John Rawls, who wrote the theory of justice, when he talked about what is provided by the Constitution and what the Constitution can securing and guaranteeing what is already provided in the Constitution. I will come back to that. But I have to talk a little bit about the interreligious dialogue that has been initiated in Nigeria. Often and on, there are many parastatals, many setups, many sectors, private sectors, public sectors, church sectors that have been set up to promote interreligious dialogue. In fact, I can remember as at 2019 or 2018, there was this Catholic entire that was organized in Munster. I was there and made a presentation there. And one of the cardinals in Nigeria, one of the archbishops in Nigeria came with some imams and also some grassroots workers who are working in that field. A huge sum of money was allotted to Nigeria for this project. I don't want to mention the amount of money that was given to these guys to make sure that they initiate interreligious dialogue. Now, Father Sylvester, you are a priest, and I believe that you are an embodiment of this institution that is called Catholic, that of course, that one can say leads in this interreligious dialogue in Nigeria. You may not have been involved in it because as a missionary, you've worked in several places in Nigeria. You also worked in Oyo, in this Western place. You also had an experience with Muslims. I can remember when they mount their microphones and singing their songs over your church and over your parish. How were you able to engage at that grassroots level with respect to interreligious dialogue? And how were you able to cope with them? Although it's a far time and things haven't changed so much, but can you give us a kind of shed light on this?
Yeah, dialogue has come into the mainstream theological conversation in recent times, in recent theology and the mainstream theology, that the dialogue has become a whole big tool for Christian movements. Now, interreligious dialogue in various forms, you get them, especially in Nigeria. When we look at Nigeria the way it is, and even when you look at it on a very broader scale, here we have a terrorist jihadist movement. They are not interested in dialogue. The concept of dialogue is not there. And we have to see the two religions, place them on the same table. Of course, you see Christians coming with a tool of dialogue. And you see most of the Muslim radicals who do not understand that concept, but only with weapons, only to combat with weapons. And that is not to say, I worked in an area, the southwest Nigeria, where you have Muslims and Christians living in the same environment as brothers and sisters. They interchange programs, they visit one another, they are living in harmony. Now, when I talk about the southwest, that's the Yoruba land, I worked there for 6 years. So, and you see, this violence is not there, but they live together harmoniously. Then you see the extreme radicals who are not actually, who are coming as foreigners into the religion. Of course, if you meet any classical Muslim, they tell you it's a religion of peace. But we see a whole lot of radicalized ones from Africa, from Nigeria, from every circle, even in the world global level. You see the most radicalized ones who are trying to take over Islam completely. And the heart of Islam becomes so violent. Of course, I don't want to go to the history of it, whether it has been violent or not. But the fact remains that there are people who have really hijacked the religion and using the name of religion causing a whole lot of pain to other people by killing, by disruption. Then in Nigeria, so the dialogue is also ongoing. We find out that the bishops of Nigeria in various forms are engaging the Muslims in dialogue. We find out that various individuals and Christian movements are also engaging in dialogue. We can see that in various scales, but the impact is not much because you are dialoguing with someone who has a weapon to kill you and who has a different approach and principle of what he wants to get executed. It's not about dialoguing with you. So dialogue continues, and bishops of Nigeria and the various forms of Christian religious movements, they are trying to engage the Muslims and engage the moderate ones too. Who, not all of them are violent, of course. Many of them are very friendly. I remember even when I was in the West, I had one of them who was my mechanic, who was my driver, who visited me, who came to my house, was almost part of our family. So I cannot say he is a Muslim and then he's a violent guy. No. There are very peaceful people who are Muslims, but there are already radicalized ones who are taking this up and working with a different principle and different agenda, which of course in various ways, either the good ones are not doing enough to be able to confront them. We also see that even mosques in Nigeria are also under attack in some cases. They have also lost a good number of people too. In that region too, we also see people being killed in a very serious way. So they are also experiencing it in a very painful way. So the dialogue we are engaging, which is the Christian tool of engagement, is the engagement of dialogue. Now, what we have to do in the various helping the Bishops' Conference and helping the various Christian movement is how do we support the peaceful ones who are understanding that there is an inter-human connection despite our religious affiliations. And there are also human development despite our religious affiliations. How can we find them out? How do we find them out? So the bishop we talked about, of course, he is engaging. He's trying to engage the Muslims into the dialogue. But as the engagement, the conversation is going on, there is also either there is a hidden agenda going, which we do not know. We see all these attacks coming at the various levels of existence in Nigeria, both in the churches, both at the mosques, and both at also those environments we rate as the Muslim areas in Nigeria. They're also experiencing a whole lot of attacks and terrorist attacks. But that should not stop the engagement. We should be bold and courageous enough to continue engaging them into this dialogue.
Thank you, Father Sylvester. I think Dr. Mark has a question for you, but before he does that, I want to emphasize something that you said, and that has also happened in history. You know, when you said the good ones, are they doing enough? You know, when there was a time, I think that was about 2013 or thereabout, 2012, 2013, I came across a new book completely written about Hitler. okay, and with commentaries. And people were like, there was something that we're celebrating at that period around that brought up the issue of Hitler. And people were saying that this nationalist group were a related group compared to the population of Germans. Okay, but this small group, this insignificant group, made Germany, turned Germany to what it became. The Holocaust that happened, the massacre of people, the violent, brutal deaths meted on people were just by a handful of people, but the good ones, the so-called good ones, were doing what? That's calls for a very serious question when we say we have good Muslims. Okay, then the question is, how much are they doing? But we'll still come to that question. Let me allow Dr. Mike to ask the question he wants to ask to Sebastian.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. It's about radical Islam. I mean, Islamic scholars claim that Islam is actually a peaceful religion. I mean, the Greek is Salam, which means peace be unto you, and all that. Why do you think some people have become vulnerable to this radicalization of Islam? On the one hand, and on the other hand, why don't we have radical Christians to take up the fight, as it were? After all, they have passages in the Bible which support violence, eye for an eye, for instance.
Okay, then if we go to the history of the church, so we know there are also the history of the conquests, the spirit of the crusades. We're not going there. Now, of course, it was a time where the Christianity has to fight for its existence. And of course, it was a time in the European history. We're not going to that history. But I think religion has all the tendency of kind of producing fundamentalists, radicals. So if we do not balance reason and faith, rationality and faith, and that's what Christian theology, especially the Catholic theology, tries to do. How do we balance faith with reason? So these two angles, they have to come together. In some senses, religion has the tendency of producing radicals in their own sense. And I want to believe, even within the Christian religion, we also have people who have also the tendency of carrying arms. But because the mainstream theology, in the theological sense, tries to balance reason and faith, if the two do not come together, how do you reason over things? And how do you really bring moved with indoctrination? So if you do not balance faith with reason, you will be indoctrinated. And by that time, you'll be moving to the right side of radicalization. So the mainstream theology tries to bring the arm of faith and the arm of reason. And that is actually what we need to bring into Nigeria in the conversation. We see people, even from the different levels and groups of religious movements in Nigeria, Christians, without even the neo-paganism that is also there, or Muslim. There's always that emotional part that always comes to play in most cases. And the rational part is not being really promoted. And that's what dialogue comes to do. How do we dialogue and say, okay, well, brother and sisters, we can also even believe in what we believe and bring reason into it. Reason and faith together. We have to work hand and work.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that is another question that we need to ask, especially for scholars in interreligious dialogue and practitioners of interreligious dialogue. How Islamic theologians, what efforts, how are they investing their efforts in order to minimize the radical understanding of the violent parts in the Quran? But we'll come to that because we don't have a Quran aspect or an Islamic aspect experts here. And I believe that in the next time, because this is a continuous conversation, we might also be able to invite scholars in that field. Before I go back to Dr. Franklin for some questions, I want to come back to Nneka. You are a young person. Young people are always prone to radicalization. Whether as Christians or as nationalists or as Muslims, young people, young minds are always 99% of the time disposed to radicalization. You are as a young person, I know you are so, your piety is, the little I know you is that you're very pious, but I'm not sure you are a radicalized pious person. So what would you say about these young people being always disposed for radicalization?
Thank you very much. I was born in the northern part of Nigeria, and I spent most of my time there with the Nigerians and also the Fulani and Hausas and Islam. There is this set of group called Al-Majlis. Yeah, it's called, the orphanages or people who doesn't have parents or something like that. So these are the ones that, based on the Islam, the way what they tell them, the way they recruit them, manipulation and all these things. So from that, the problem is what Father really raised, the relationship between reasoning and faith. They don't seem to match these two together. From what I know, I spend most of my time in the house also. So who are the ones doing all those crises, the extremists? They are the young ones recruited. They don't know their parents. What they do is that they move from one Alhaji to another for feeding. So when somebody provides something for you, feed you, shelter you, you have to obey what the person says. So, but coming to what you said, that we don't really know how far the Islamic theologians have gone in terms of reasoning, combining reasoning and faith. But from my own experience, I noticed that it has to do with they are not matching reasoning and faith together. That's the problem. What the young ones, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, Alhaji Babao, help us, and anything you send us, we are going to do it. But when it comes to the Christian, we try to manage faith and reason. There are a lot of radical people, but because of the way we are taught, that we have to engage in dialogue. We have to engage in dialogue. We have to reason too. But these are the guys most of them did not go to school, coming to education. That's the problem. And that's what is causing this today. Explosion everywhere. Yeah, they have people who are sponsoring them, but it has to do with these guys who are the emergents. I spend most of my time with them. That was bonded to.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that aspect of the emergents. And Dr. Franklin, you are smiling and shaking your head. So I'm sure you are itching to make comments on this interreligious dialogue, this case of faith and reason, the whole idea of whether there are radicals in Christianity, and of course, the idea of whether Islamic theologians in Nigeria, if there is any, are actually doing a good job. Okay, so you have the floor, Dr. Franklin.
Well, thank you very much, Sister Dr. Idika, once more. The point that Father Sylvester raised is equally important. Every religion has had its own radicals. Christianity as well. There was a time we Christians were killing people in the medieval times. The Grand Inquisitors, we know them. We had crusades, and we had Reformation, where we started thinking when humanism came into religion, we started saying, actually, it was the humanists that actually referred us back to Christ, because everything that Christ taught was clear, but we forgot it at a point in time. Even everything St. Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, and all the church fathers wrote got lost in the medieval times. People rose up and started killing other people, especially women, calling them witches. Okay, and then people, papal states rose up in arms and financed wars to reclaim Jerusalem. So we saw all that. Every religion has its own radicals, and then, but the point is, if there is this reformation, and then once this reformation comes in, people will start seeing that we should not be fighting for God. You know, there was something Jesus said in the Gospels. He told Simon Peter, "Mokem take your sword and put it back into its sheath. If I want defense, I'll call for legions of angels. Okay. And the guy that was, huffing and puffing to defend Christ was only able to cut a piece of ear. He didn't see the neck. Okay. That tells you a lot about those who fight for their gods. Because when people start fighting for their gods, it means that the gods they are worshiping is they themselves. Because if your God is omniscient and omnipotent as you claim that he is, he should be able to defend himself. And God doesn't even want us to defend him. God wants us to live as brothers, irrespective of wherever we come from, irrespective of the religion. That's why interreligious dialogue is very important. And come to think of it, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are called the Abrahamic religions because all these religions originated from Abraham. They all take Abraham as their father in faith. But why is Christianity and Islam in the modern times at loggerheads, especially in poor countries? In poor countries like Nigeria, the rich Islamic countries that are radicalized like Wahhabi Islam in Saudi Arabia are financing unrests in poor countries. Why is that the case? Isn't it time for Africans to start thinking? While I was a student in BIGAD, we were talking about inculturation then. Father Nwabeke and Father Madubuko and all the rest of them, we are talking about inculturation, bringing the gospel down into our culture, making the gospel authentically African. If Muslims could do that, making Islam authentically African, we should think as Africans first. What can we do to make sure that this good news, be it from Prophet Muhammad or from Jesus that we all received, should be for the best interest and the betterment of the lives of our people today, not killing them? So these conflicts are basically not necessary. And this is what dialogue should make clear to all the parties to every conflict. Why should we fight? We are brothers. We have Abraham. We should emphasize what unites us instead of what divides us. Okay, so this is what is called for in interreligious dialogue. That being said, in Nigeria, like the young man said, yeah, we have, Nigeria is a very poor country with a lot of wealth. Okay, and when one takes a radical look at Nigeria, one will come to see that it seems that the leaders, what Chinua Achebe decried in his little pamphlet, The Trouble with Nigeria, it seems that the leaders have jettisoned the responsibility of personal example, and they are enjoying the fact that Nigeria is dysfunctional, that there are these conflicts, because it seems that these conflicts funnel rivers of wealth into their pockets. If that is not the case, what is a political leader doing when his country is going to hell, when people are dying on the streets, when there is no security anywhere, and you call yourself a leader, and you don't even have basic hospitals? And if you are sick, you fly to Germany to be treated. Our president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, was treated in Wiesbaden, very close to my house here. And I have always asked Nigerian leaders, when was the last time Angela Merkel flew to Nigeria to be treated? Or George Bush? Or any Western leader? Are we not even ashamed? So sometimes I think we Africans need to stop being ashamed of ourselves, that we have so very much destroyed a promising continent, that we are the laughingstock of the world. So all these conflicts, I sometimes see them as a symptom of poverty, because if people feed their families, go to school, have adequate health care, have jobs that they go to 8 hours a day, they will have less time to spare trying to find somebody to kill. So we really need to start talking development. Once we bring development to our people, most of these crimes of atrocity crimes that we have in Nigeria will be reduced to a minimum. And this is why I support the young people who are now radically trying to reclaim their country for themselves. That's why I support us jettisoning these old men, old thieves that have stolen us blind till today. That's why I support that the young people should rise up and vote the right people into power so that Nigeria can have a new lease of life. I tell every Nigerian everywhere in all my conferences, no African will be respected anywhere until an African country crosses that threshold to become a first world country. And Nigeria has all the potentials to do that.
Okay.
Until we do that, we are nowhere.
Yeah, Dr. Franklin, you talk always passionately. I think that this is the last phase of the questions I'm going to ask, and that was because on my side here, the Emeka mentioned of education, and Father Sylvester also mentioned about a theology that brings faith and reason together. And of course, from the question, what the comments that Dr. Mike made about a failed state, which of course Dr. Franklin has been emphasizing that this failed state needs to be redeemed. And one of those maybe processes or approach to the redemption of that country is voting the right people in power. So this is not a platform or a panel discussing about elections and who will be elected or not. We are concerned about the lives of people who have been violently killed, dreams taken away, life, vision, taken away from people without their consent. People whose lives are wasted and nobody accounts for it. It's not even about statistics, because we're talking about children, we're talking about mothers, we're talking about fathers, we're talking about people's brothers and sisters. We're talking about people. We're not just talking about numbers that are being killed every day. Some of these things we hear in the news, some we don't. Along the streets of this country called Nigeria, you see bodies lying here and there, and nobody cares about them. Some lie there and decay, and people just pass there, sell things, eat on top of corpses. You ask how have we come to this stage? So the question is not just talking, but what can be done? It's not too much. I mean, something that took about 40, 50 years to happen. Because what we witness today is not just something that happened today. It took time for you to imagine what it is. That means for us to get the clock backward, it still needs time. So whatever that will be done is something that will be done in time. And it takes time picking the right people. So talking about education, talking about dialogue, talking about having the right people in power. How are those things possible? How do we go about those things at the grassroots level? Because it is only from the grassroots that you can change things. Already, those are at the center of affairs and the people in power. Those are the periphery and the people at the grassroots. And they are the ones that are mostly affected. So I will now begin with Father Sylvester for the last comment on what you think could be done at the grassroots level in order to get people engaged, get people equipped. Development at the grassroots level, not just magnificent buildings, not technology, at the grassroots level, what you call human development that can make people to be able to take responsibility for themselves and make right choices and right decisions, even if the person is hungry.
Okay, thank you. The question is very clear. And what are we doing on the grassroots level? And I will only talk from the perspective of being a Christian and being a Catholic priest. And I will only talk also from the theological concept of an incarnation. And incarnation is not just an event that happened in history, it's also a movement. Pope John Paul II will call it an incarnation movement. And on the grassroots is where do we really carry the message of the incarnation to the grassroots, to everybody. And what is that? It's simply God and man coming together. God and man forming an alliance of development. And that means we don't push everything into religious things. Only religion can grant us all things. But the human power and human contribution to development is also an important aspect of it. So that, of course, if we get to Nigeria, every good number of Nigeria is so religious inclined. Religious inclined means from Christianity to Muslim to down to other pagan religions, ethnic religions. They are all religiously motivated people. And you find out, if you want to do anything, we spend and give God the responsibility to do that. And what are the human beings doing in making the human development come to place? And I want to tell you, no matter how we pray, and how I encourage people to pray, if the human reason and human good thinking and good will and human does not come into action, then the development will not happen. Because all the things we get out of prayer, it needs a human mind, a human hand, a sound mind to come together to bring it into concrete levels. So that is where we have to say, okay, from the grassroots level, we talked about education. Education, for instance, is not going to happen. God is not going to teach us. Human beings are going to teach. And human beings with sound mind and sound mentality and goodwill to teach and to educate the whole person. I'm looking at on the grassroots, how can we start educating the whole person? So the education is not just what happens in the educational institutions in the school, but what happens even from the family level too, from the interactions that the human person is being educated, is being formed. And if we come through this concept of the incarnation movement as a movement, that we are informing this person to become a truly human person. And a truly human person who is going to be truly human and coming in contact with God at the same time. And no aspect of it will be overemphasized without talking about God. I can't talk about the human development and human growth in the whole processes of it. And then we ask him, go as he talked about the Alama race, for instance. Okay, who spend their times and being educated to cram the Quran. They are all spend the time cramming it and trying to memorize it all the time. And do not think about how do I even on pieces the telephone or the technology I'm using that and trying to fix it again. So they cram the Quran, but at the end of the day, they turn to violence because they have nothing else to give. Christianity can become like that too if we do not take care. Because in the same way, if Christianity and Christians are also spending so much time in the churches, which is good, in prayer, wonderful. But we have to match it up with authentic human development, coming together, God and man, being together, of course. We still need good hospitals, and that's why we have good medical doctors. We need good medical doctors to grant good health system. We still have good teachers to grant good health education system. We still have good scientists. If we do not have them, God is not going to do that for us.
Okay. Thank you. Hold it there. That's a very good place to stop because but we have to do it ourselves. So before I come to Dr. Mike and Dr. Franklin, then I will take questions. Of course, let me hear what you have to say about what can be done at the grassroots level to grant this total human development.
Well, in conclusion, I would say that it has to do with reorientation. Reorientation has to do with, it's not only the prayer, it's as far as already said, it's total formation, total reawakening of what is the truth. How do I match my religious life with my practical, my everyday life? Yeah, it has to do with how do we move from where we are by voting the right person. How do we start? By telling other people, if we don't do this, our future will not progress. We will still be where we are. That is the kind of re-awareness, reawakening what we are supposed to do. Because it's all about the youth are saying, some of them are saying, well, I don't believe in this country anymore, but it's our country. The most important thing is awareness and telling ourselves, this is how we have to do it. We have to move and vote the right people in the office. People that will move us to where we're supposed to be. It's not going to be under 5 years, but it's going to take time. But the most important thing is awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Father Sylvester talked about the incarnation movement, an unconnected education that has this attribute of incarnation, where we become truly human. And now we're talking about reawareness, creating reawakening of the conscience, reawakening of the consciousness, reawakening of a fundamental principle that Africa preaches about, humanism, Ubuntu, and all that, all those principles that says the other human being is important. That's what Africa trumpets all the time. But when you hear this kind of killings, you shudder and begin to question this particular principle. So you are saying you need to reawaken that consciousness. So, Bob, what would you say to this?
It said almost everything. But like what I was saying, I think the main principle should be catch them young. When we are the lost generation, we cannot progress to the So, and I think emphasis should be placed on functional education. I was talking to the editor of the African Project that day, and I was saying that the education the British left behind wasn't functional. It wasn't meant for you to, develop progress, like the one they, tender and cultivate in their homelands. It was meant to just colonize, rule and divide. But I think we need to go inward. We need to go back to the drawing board and look at our educational system. If possible, even teach in our local languages. That is what South Korea did, Japan. And that's why they are where they are today. So that education will be meaningful. We have a deeper understanding of what we're doing. We did physics, chemistry, but just learning by rote. You cannot progress with that unless you are in contact with the physical stuff, the materials, the chemicals. So that's where we need to place our emphasis. Like you said, God's work on this earth is ours. Just quoting JFK, what is it? God's work on this earth is ours. He will not come down from heaven and do our cross. So functional education is
okay, I remember when I was little, there is this song, Standard Living, and I never knew how to sing it, I have already become an adult before I know the words of that poem, Standard Living, Standard Living. So as a child, we are saying Standard Living, Standard Living, Standard Living, Standard Living. I didn't know what it was. In fact, I was already here in Germany before I knew exactly what is the content of that song. Standard Living, Standard Living, Standard Living, Standard Living. Because in the primary school, we're singing and shouting it, and then you hear London Bridge is falling down. London Bridge, you never sing London Bridge before, and it's falling down, So actually, what we inherited, the colonial education we inherited, is damaging. Christianity is also part of those colonial inheritance. Muslim, Islamic religion is also that colonial inheritance that has diffused and disfigured and distorted the whole understanding of being human that we have, and that today we are in this mess, killing people in the name of religion. So that I now return to Dr. Umeze to make it brief so that we can take the next 15 minutes, we'll take questions from them, because I'm sure there are many questions from the people here. Okay, Dr. Umeze.
Hello, I'm losing you guys.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
Go on, yeah. I said to you, I don't know whether you had what I said last.
No, I did not hear what you said last. Could you please repeat?
Okay, I said that Dr. Mike said about functional education. Father Sylvester talked about incarnated education, education that brings God and reason together. And Dr. Frank is out. Okay, he's there. Okay, fine. Okay, then we have Nneka here, who also talked about reawakening, And I said something. Of course, we had the education we inherited is dysfunctional. I made an example of a poem that we learned as children that I never knew the words until when I grew up. And we don't know what that had to do with my life as an African, as a little girl in my little village down there, okay? And how much that has impacted in my understanding of my environment or what I call my environment, because education is, it's a reproduction of society. It's a reproduction of values. So when such education is so dysfunctional and foreign and colonial, it has its consequences. Religion is also colonial. Christian religion and Islamic religion, they're all colonial inheritances that came in at one point and have contributed to what we are. experiencing to the Christian fighting against Christians or Muslims in this context, killing innocent worshippers in their churches, regardless of the fact that there is a provision in the Constitution for religious freedom. So, at the grassroots level, please, Dr. Franklin, what do you think we need to do to, first of all, create a consciousness that people should first see the person before them as humans before they belong to any race or ethnic group or religious group or whatever? So that's
my question. Okay.
And of course, I want to ask questions too, so we make it brief so we can have.
Okay, no, that's the question you threw to me. Anyway, my answer to that is very simple. We have to look at what Boko Haram is doing and then do the opposite. If you ask me, what is Boko Haram doing?
Yeah, what is it doing?
Boko Haram is attacking the fundamentals. Boko Haram say that education is haram, is evil. Boko Haram is attacking government, democracy, politics. That's why they attack government institutions and all the rest of them. Boko Haram is attacking religion. And the solution to the problems that we have in Nigeria today has to be dealt with at these three levels. First of all, let me start with the last, religion. For Sylvester, I'm sorry, but I have to tell the Nigerian Christians this. We have failed. We have failed to evangelize politics. We left politics into the hoodlums, to the crooks, and they have taken our country and sold us all down the river. It's now time for the church and for Christians to start evangelizing politics. Christians should be encouraged to stop seeing politics as dirty. Plato said it. Edmund Burke repeated it. The price a good man pays who refuses to get into politics is to live under the government of evil men. And that's what is happening in Nigeria. Christians abandoned politics because we want to go to heaven. St. Augustine wrote Divinitas Dei, the city of God. He is comparing the kingdom of heaven with what we have here. We have to get involved with what is happening here. If we have to live a good life, if we want to live a good life that will lead us to that kingdom that we cannot see. So my first solution is the church, Christians should try to start now to evangelize politics. I like what is the movement that is coming on right now. Peter Obi is going from one church to the other. And you can see Christians asking and telling their members, go get your PVC. Don't leave your civic responsibility to the hands of thugs who now vote and then install who will rule over you and then tell you that you cannot even practice your religion because they will introduce Sharia in the north. But if we are able to get good people in positions of authority, most of the problems we have will be reduced to a barest minimum. So Boko Haram attacks religion, so we should now get religion to evangelize politics. The second point, we have to talk about education. I love everything you all said about education. Our education is colonial. Even till today, our curriculum is still colonial in Nigeria. But the basic problem I have seen across every educational curriculum that I have seen in Nigeria is the fact that we lost sight of the important thing, critical thinking. It's only philosophers that can at least think critically in the Nigerian context. We lost that. I would want to see an educational curriculum across board where critical thinking and logic is a veritable part of how we train our children. The Americans, Montclair State University in New Jersey, there was a professor there that started what is called philosophy for children. Getting children to think logically and critically. That's what computers do. 1 + 1 will always be 2. If you listen or if you check what our people are writing across the social media, you will know that Nigeria has lost the future. Look at Chinese students. Watch Chinese people, what they do on social media. They have gained tomorrow. If you have a child today, go and teach him or her Mandarin, because these people are going to rule the world starting from the next 10 years. But where are we? Nigeria has 200 million people. We are still unproductive because we don't think critically. It's critical thinking that will give us the kind of what Kwasi Wiredu called sciento-technical rationality, which leads countries to develop. We can pray all we want. St. Augustine said, if we pray, St. James, if we pray without working, faith without good works is dead. Augustine emphasized it. Laborare est orare. To work is to pray. And Sophocles even said that heaven will never help those who never act. So if we keep on praying without acting, without working, like Father Sylvester said, Nigeria will remain the basket case that it is today. So the church leaders in Nigeria should rise up and realize that this dance has passed Ajasco, that we are now in a very critical point. We should start teaching our people, get into politics, evangelize it, get into politics, be a good man there, get into politics and practicalize what you learned from the church's teaching. Not only praying, we have to pray and work. Bishop Energy used to tell us that prayer and good works are the two wings with which a bird flies. That's what the church should do. And there is another critical thing that has actually thrown all our efforts down the drain. It is what I call the Western Union syndrome. Because many of us are abroad, we keep sending money to our folks down there. And this makes many people lazy, and it makes them to stop thinking about changing their societies. These monies that we are sending them is preventing Nigerians from changing their society, because if they are pushed to the wall and they have nothing to eat, they will stand up and tell those crooks stealing their resources that enough is enough. But because we subsidize their luxury to a great extent and so subsidize their poverty as well, then many of them sit back and then we don't do nothing. That's why we don't see any change. If Nigerians are pushed to the wall, they will rise up and tell those goons that Nigeria is not their property, that Nigeria belongs to all of us. I am still happy that Peter Obi is engendering a quiet revolution. Whether he wins the presidency or not, Nigeria has changed for the better. We're no longer talking about stomach infrastructure in an election. We are now talking about issues-based politics. This is what tells me that Nigeria, there is hope for that great country. It's not great yet, but our people are good people, and we are going to make it if we keep on at it. That's all I have to tell you guys for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the final round now is for me to take questions before we make the final comments, and then we close for the day. So I'm looking at the audience. You might have questions either to personally directed at the panelists or a general question that each and every one of them can answer. If you want to appear on the camera, you are free to show yourself on the camera, but if you want to just put on your voice, it's acceptable. You can ask from your seats. Okay.
Yes, I would like to ask a question. My name is Peter.
Your name is what?
Sorry? Peter.
Your name?
Peter.
Peter, okay.
Since already social media was mentioned, I would just like to hear from you on what role social media plays nowadays also for the youth in Nigeria, and if this is also maybe a reason why there's amplification of these thoughts spread all over the kind of maybe also extremism that is happening.
Okay, before the answer is, I want to make a quotation that Margaret Thatcher in 1985 said something that's about terrorism, when terrorism hasn't become what it is today. He said that publicity is the oxygen of terrorism. Okay, so, and she said it at that point when you keep advertising them, preaching them. So with social media, it's becoming even more. So they put up such terrifying images on top of the social media, and the fear spreads across. And so, but I will keep it there for now, and then I will call on the panelists to make short responses to what you think the role of social media in this whole thing, particularly in regards to young people. Okay, I will begin with Neveka.
Yes, social media has a way of amplifying the issue. It has a way of showcasing a pseudo situation. I mean, how amplifying what is not really what it is. The social media has also helped to create awareness of what is happening. But sometimes people who are in the diaspora, some things it's being amplified. They don't really understand what's the magnitude of what is happening. But in a real sense, I would say that social media has an advantage and disadvantage. What you see in social media is not always what it is. Yeah.
Okay, so Mike?
Yes, well, like you were saying, the social media is a double-edged sword. and do good and bad. And the keyword is critical thinking, which is lacking in Nigeria. People tend to believe whatever is written down, published, which can be very dangerous. Look at the vaccine hesitation, for instance, in regards to COVID. How many people have, foregone vaccination due to fear of being infected by a virus or whatever. And it does play a role in religious conflicts in Nigeria. And like I mentioned earlier during the discussion, you cannot reason with a religious person. It's not possible, which makes the issue of interreligious marriage quite difficult, if not impossible. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Father Sylvester, you want to comment? You have a lot of young people that you're managing, like you're managing a company.
Yes, you will be surprised at the impact of technology and social media in Nigeria. No matter how poor we think Nigeria is, the youngest person in Nigeria will spend the last couple he gets from someone to go and provide himself or herself with a good fund. So you'll be surprised that almost every Nigerian youth has a smartphone. And they find ways, in various ways, to make sure they remain connected. And in any form, they can get any credit card, they call it. So mobile phone in Nigeria is the way of communication. So we don't have the land phones we have in Europe. It used to be, but at a point when we had this mobile explosion of technology, it came up so much that you will be surprised at people, children of various rural areas carrying almost the latest smartphone. You'll be surprised to find it in Nigeria. So you'll also be surprised to find out how many Nigerians or Nigerian youths that are having all these social media accounts, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, and the most popular one, the WhatsApp. And that also has kind of empowered even everybody to become a kind of a newscaster, the reporter in various ways. So if whether those what they are reporting are edited or not, you see somebody falling in front of you. What a basic Nigerian need to do is to bring up his phone and start recording that person. Before you know it, it's already on social media.
It's gone viral.
It's gone viral. So somebody cannot die peacefully in his house. Even you'll be surprised that his little child or grandchild has already taken his picture. Before you know it, it has gone viral to the whole nation already on WhatsApp. His picture of his dying father. You will have also accidents going on. Somebody will not even know how to help give the person the immediate care. He or she will just bring out the phone and start recording what was going on, right? And of course, before the next second, it has gone around the world. For those of us who are in Europe, as you get the news, you are always panicking, as if you should get out of your house, you die, or if you get out of the house, you are kidnapped, or if you get out of your house, Boko Haram will throw a bomb on you. I want to tell you, Nigeria is a sweet place to live. You'll be surprised that the good life is also there in Nigeria. But there is also a hype of the whole incident on the social media that tells you there's a whole lot of things going on. You think it's really happening every second. Are these things true? Is evil actually happening? Yes. But there's a hype from the social media of trying to tell us that it happens at every second or every minute. Because there is unedited form of the news. And there is no unofficial one that are not even interested. And there are people that also try to copy something that happened at another corner of the earth and transpose it to a story. We can always find that also on the WhatsApp platforms. People carry things and transpose it into a Nigerian situation and tell you the story just happened now. You can also see young people using their phones to already record their own voice to say, if you come out today in Nigeria, you will die. Just don't make sure you do not go out. I promise you, if you come out, you are going to die. You see what will happen to you. And before you know it, everybody is getting that and spreading it across. And people are living in fear. So as much as the social medias are so positive, they transmit information that even the mainstream media are not even bringing out. They don't talk on, they don't report all of these things. But the private platforms are reporting them, but in an unedited form. As long as they are good, it's also good to see how do we place a balance between what is true and what is not.
Okay, yeah. So I remember, I'll come to you first. I remember a book I was reading sometime. I think it's a book that Dr. Franklin gave to me. It's about post-truth. It's called Post-Truth. And that book was talking about this half-truth, full-truth, and so on, with the emergence of the politics of the former president of the United States. So I will not go into that. Dr. Franklin must have something to say about this question of social media. He has already told us that the money that is being sent down home is making them not to be lazy. So, and first investor is saying they need to buy the latest smartphone that that send the money is not even using. Okay. So, Dr. Franklin, you are now, you have to ask to this discussion on young people and social media and the situation, how social media is playing a big role in this whole terror activities or killings and so on. Okay.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. The question, I really need to thank you for making that a beautiful observation. You guys have treated these issues so very well. The point is that, like Father Sylvester said, the social media is an instrument, is a piece of technology, okay? And it was just like when the television was invented in the 1920s. Everybody wants to get on television to spread his message. But what we really need to understand is that anybody who tells you a story controls your destiny. That's why history is a weapon. Anybody who wields that weapon decides who you are. That's why Chinua Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart, Arrow of God, and all the rest of them. He wanted to tell his own story from his own perspective. Europe told the whole world that we were pagans, we were savages. And this guy came out and said, hell no, my people had a republican democracy when ancient Greece was slumbering in primitivity, that we are a people. So social media has democratized access to information. It has also democratized access to the spreading of ignorance. Anybody could use it to spread anything he wants in real time. So it's a weapon. I am not suggesting that social media should be censored or controlled. I am neither a fan of unlimited spreading of using the media to spread anything anybody wants. Because even in law, you cannot, freedom of speech doesn't allow you to cry fire in a crowded theater. So there should be some, the society should weigh what is in its best interest and then use that to say, because if you give people we have in Nigeria like Lai Mohammed and the rest of them the power to control social media, what they have wanted all this while, then there will be no criticism of the government. And criticizing the government is the fundamental duty of every citizen, because power is a dog that needs a leash. If you don't criticize power, power will swallow you alive. So, but if you say anybody should use social media to distribute content that is inimical to the social cohesion, like terrorism, then we will say the state should rise up and apply its own laws, because we have laws in the statute books that limits every freedom that we have, because freedom comes with responsibility. So that's the way I look at it. It should not be a free-for-all where anybody uses it to the detriment of every other person. But it should not be censored, that we cannot raise our voices to criticize social issues when they arise.
Thank you very much. I was telling somebody about netizens, and somebody was talking about social media in-laws. So you have family problems and you bring it up to the social media. Many people are there to advise you how to live your family life, and they are there to vote your life. If you're a celebrity, you put up anything there, they're going to there to vote for you. So social media is quite something very, we need to be careful So,
I think maybe the last speaker just said it. My name is Chu.
yeah, true, okay.
I think he spoke something exactly what I said is I'm from Cameroon. And many times one of our problems is that we find the government sometimes very much involved in disinformation through social media. And so the role of the government should also be, especially in Africa, looked upon how they disinform people, how they try to manipulate the people through the social media.
Yeah.
That's the point I just want.
Okay, thank you so much. So,
my name is Ima. Sorry, I came late, but in respect of what happened in Nigeria, and it's common in many other African countries, in the country of origin, Cameroon too, it happens often. The point is, most of our panelists have brought the key issues, the reason why we have such issues. Some have spoken about ethnic crisis, which backs back to colonialism, the divide and rule policy that was left behind, failure from our political leaders. We have also the issue of failed education, this foreign education, which we have received up to now. So I want to go back to this very important issue. The curriculum we get as children, or we still get in Africa today, which is very foreign, which is alienated to our culture, our environment. But it's not new. I remember 30 years ago when I was a small girl, it was like, it's clear to every politician, every educator that our curriculum doesn't fit anymore. But for decades, it's like it's evident, but nothing changes. So I'm like curious. Sometimes I don't even have hope anymore. For it, I never had philosophy or reflective thinking as he's trying to. So everybody says it should be introduced, we should make reforms, but it never happens. So I'm like, what's the problem at that level? Is it that our politicians, or is it still the colonial master? So I'd like some people to help me understand this very difficult or maybe easy thing which could be done but still doesn't take place.
okay, we have just 5 minutes to go, but it's like we have about 30 more questions. So I'll take the questions and then I will allow the panelists to give a short answer. You must not respond to all the questions. So I'll just take the question. So here is the question of curriculum. I take it why we have said this over and over again. Why is it that nothing has been done? That's your question. And then somebody was raising her hand there.
Yes, my name is Caroline. I'm a Nigerian. Actually, what is happening in Nigeria, when I see it, my heart bleeds. But I can see that so many things that are happening in Nigeria is something that our leaders can control. But at this moment, I've seen that they are no longer interested. They're only interested in what they will gain from what is happening.
So what's
my question now is that, is it possible that, yes, Nigeria was colonized, with Britain colonized Nigeria. Is it possible at this moment, maybe German government to inform, especially because Britain has failed us. At this moment, is it possible, especially in this upcoming election, for them to make sure that everything goes how it's supposed to go? Because the ones leading us there, they don't have conscience anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So
okay.
I want
whether German government should get involved in Nigerian elections. Okay. Yes. Any other? Yeah.
Thank you, sister. My name is Rosia. I have a question because the word has been mentioned a few times. And yeah, how fair is it to say that the division we see now is a result of colonialism? And I ask this question in the context, I lived for 2 years in Ethiopia, and as probably most of you know, Ethiopia is in a civil war, although it's undeclared. Ethiopia has never been conquered and prides itself on saying this, no? That it's an uncolonized country. Yet there is still such deep-seated division based not only on Muslim Christian lines, but also tribal lines. So Tigray in the north, the Oromo, and in the south, Somali, and many others. So I just want to kind of question and wrestle with that a bit. because sometimes it's so easy to blame it on others. But really, even if maybe Nigeria was never colonized, would this still be an issue? Because at the end of the day, is it really just because of what we've inherited, or is it a heart issue? Like what we've been talking about in the beginning, that you let religion radicalize you because there isn't the use of reason, whether because we haven't been educated in philosophy, but even at home, you don't need a formal education to receive the use of logic, right, and common sense. So I just wonder and want to wrestle with how fair is it to say that the division we see now, Muslim Christian lines, is coming in a big part from colonial history, when in Ethiopia, as an example, who was not quote unquote colonized, we see deep-seated division right now at the same time. Okay,
Before I give the mic to my panelists, I need to rephrase your question. To what extent? The question will be, to what extent does colonial history contribute to what is happening in the colonized part of the world? Okay, because it might be that it is not always colonialism that is contributing, but we can compare situations. Okay, so Ethiopia is a society, Nigeria is a society, Cameroon is a society, German society is also a society that we are once violent. And the war going on in Ukraine and Russia is also a conflict in Yemen, in Iraq. These are places you find some of these things. Most of these places do not experience colonialism. Even if they do, their experience of that colonialism is always different. The narrative is always different. That's why I will rephrase the question to be not whether it is fair, but to say to what extent can one say that colonialism contributed to the things happening in those colonial parts of the world, particularly the case we have in hand, Nigeria. So I will give the platform, first of all, to Dr. Umueze before I give the people who are present. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Because the last questioner, I appreciate your question. Colonialism, yeah, colonialism is a veritable part of the problem. The example you give of Ethiopia, Ethiopia was an empire. And what is an empire? Empire conquers smaller units to agglomerate power for itself. So what is happening between the Oromo and the Tigrayans in the north and the undeclared civil war that is claiming a lot of lives is as a result of that internal colonialism that came about as a result of Ethiopia being an empire. So colonialism doesn't necessarily mean Europe colonizing Africa. In the case of Ethiopia, that was the case. Ethiopia was an empire, and empires exercise influence over what they call their spheres of influence, and they agglomerate smaller units. And most of these smaller units were not willingly. Nobody knocked on the door and said, come in and join me. They were conquered by force of arms. And then you see these dissensions lasting centuries and generations on end. And this is the major reason why Ethiopia today is a boiling pot. So having said that, it is so very fair to blame colonialism. Chinua Achebe said something. Colonialism is the greatest insult that you could ever heap on any people. It's not only that Africa was colonized, the cream de la cream of our young people were carted and sold as slaves to the Americas. And if you understand African tradition, the older generation hands over knowledge, wisdom gathered over millennia to the oncoming generation. But at a point in our history, that was broken. That chain of succession was broken because the young men that should have received this wisdom from the aged ones were all carted away to the Americas, and Africa lost its trajectory of development at that level. Not only that, the name Africa is not even African. It was the name given to us by the Romans. No country in Africa today was created out of itself, except countries like Ethiopia. Every country in Africa today was scrambled for and demarcated on a table in 1885 Berlin. Even the names that we have for our countries were not given to us by our own selves. They were names given to us by the colonizers. So everything about us, the ontology of our existence as nation states, as imagined communities, we never dialogued it out into existence. So our people are virtually living in a construct that they never wanted. And if you read Peter Eke's The Idea of Two Publics, you will understand that. That's why A Nigerian, for example, that works for the government sees that job not as his job, not as he's working for his country. He sees that as what we call in Igbo, Oluo Igbo, is the white man's job. I will do it just for them. He's not doing it for his country. So there is this split in our consciousness, which colonialism infused on Africans, and that has damaged us a great deal. And we have not been able to recover. I know 60 odd years or 70 years is not even enough to breach that chasm, to heal those trauma, that psychological trauma, psychosocial trauma that colonialism imposed on us. So yeah, I blame colonialism on one part, but colonialism is not responsible for all the problems. African leaders, post-independent African leaders till date, have not been able to rise to what Chinua Achebe called the responsibility of personal example. Singapore was colonized too. And what happened? South Korea. And they rose up to become first world nations, which is to say they had leaders that at some point said, we have to look forward. We shouldn't keep on mourning the past. So we have factors that could explain the African predicament. My new book that is coming out pretty soon is just an attempt to explain all this. The factors that explain the African predicament are colonialism and slave trade, 2, African leadership, and 3, what some people call neocolonialism. How many African leaders could take decisions about their countries today without the influence of IMF and WTO and having to battle these global behemoths that actually are there to determine what Africans do? And many of the debts that we pay to the IMF, they are asking us to pay them back again. And they will come to keep on enticing these weak governments that were not elected by their people. How many African leaders have risen up to try to chart paths for their nations and were killed by Western intelligence agencies? Should I mention Lumumba? Should I mention Thomas Sankara, who was killed by the French intelligence? Or should I mention CIA manipulating elections across many African countries? So we know what is happening. These are what causes the African predicament. Colonialism and neocolonialism is a part of it. But Africans have equally a role to play. We should ask ourselves the questions.
Dr. Franklin,
What?
Okay. You said something important, neocolonialism, and somebody is asking here, why can't German governments get involved in the elections in Nigeria? So what do you have to say to that?
That is an insult. Yeah, it's an insult. If Nigerians cannot conduct elections for themselves, then we deserve every bad leadership that we get. This is what I said. I love the movement right now. Young people are rising up to say enough is enough. And that is the way to go. Europe will never develop Africa for us. Only Africans can, nobody comes to your aid without his self-interest being a part of it. If we want, we are the change we are looking for, said Barack Obama. And I believe him. We are the change we are looking for. Unless we sit down and tell ourselves the home truth, that nobody is coming to save us except ourselves. Nobody developed China for the Chinese. So why should we wait for Europe to come and develop us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Franklin. But I want to ask the panelists here if they share the same view. Do we need German government to get involved in Nigerian election for it to function, to go well? I mean, you must not answer. I mean, you must not answer if you don't want to answer.
Anyway, let me jump in there and try to bring answers to some of the questions here on ground. The fact is, Africa has been for a long time in history disadvantaged by history and by events in history. We can talk about 500 years of slave trade, where the membranes, the real good thoughts of many Africans were transported in a very harsh condition across the globe. So we don't want to get into that. And after that 500 years, can you imagine that, of slave trade, that most good brains of Africans were transported out. So nobody jumps into that, and no history comes to apologize to Africa, to the Africans. Africans are still today, up to today, waiting for apology for that, because an apology to our humanity. Another part of it is when Africa ended, it came in a different form of colonialism. And the almost of the African nations that were colonized don't have their names given to them by, as already mentioned, were only inherited names. Before colonialism, there was no name called Nigeria. It's a gift we only got from our colonial masters. Another gift we talk about joining nations or tribes or ethnic groups together. And that kind of marriage has not been really blessed on the altar. It's unceremonized marriage. And it has really brought us, it's not really to take us forward until we're able to think of our nationhood. I remember when we were constructing the topic, we talked about nationhood and country. There is always that mindset in most African nations, and especially in Nigeria, there is no nation. Because we don't think as a nation, we think as a country, as a conglomeration of a particular group of people, ruled by end of the map. If you look at that map, if you bring Nigeria, African map, and you see lines, straight lines, drawn of people coming together. The same thing happening in Nigeria, the same thing happening in Cameroon, and happening in most African countries. They are all struggling with it. What was the system of colonialism? It was a system of indirect rule. And the indirect rule is that the master plays behind the screen and projects the locals to do their business. They disappeared and went back, of course, but they are still projecting the locals who are benefiting as the indirect rulers. Most of the elections in Africa are manipulated from behind. And most of the economic situations in Africa are being manipulated. We talk of Nigeria being an oil nation. Truth be told, we know that there is no refinery in Nigeria. That the crude oil is being transported out of Nigeria to be refined and brought back to us, and bottled. So, and who are the countries involved in all of this for a decade of years? Do you think that they will allow power to go out if their own interests are not protected? We know that the international law and international politics is what it is. We know what comes out of the screen is not what goes behind the screen. There are a lot of lobbying that goes on. And it is not brought out. The common man on the street is being asked to go and kill their brother. But the masters who play this thing are the indirect rulers who are being manipulated by the masquerades behind the screen. And nobody wants to mention all of that.
Okay.
And even see where there is even, of course, call it where there is war. Who are those manufacturing those weapons? Who are those benefiting economically from it? Let's not go into that, but let it be told, and in our own time today, that humanity, that our human community as human beings, we have to emphasize.
Okay. So thank you very much, and I think I need to end up the conversation by just a few words.
Can I just respond to what our sister?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. I wanted to comment on that, but you can answer.
Yeah, because it's a very important question.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with intellectual laziness on the one hand, and number two, what Fela Kuti, the musician, would call colonial mentality. The idea that what is foreign is superior, is inferiority complex. That is why most of the curricula in Africa or in Nigeria, West Africa, have been changed. And I think those are the reasons behind it. I like to tell a joke about a woman who protested in the hospital. Her child was administered with local anesthesia. She said, no, I don't want any local anesthesia, I want a foreign one. Captures the whole captures the whole mindset.
Okay, thank you so much. I really wanted to comment on that because I was once involved in a committee to create a curriculum for philosophy in primary school, secondary school in Nigeria. Okay, nursery, primary, secondary school in Nigeria. The thing is that after a whole 3 months of work, day and night, we are still waiting for that to be brought into use. Although it's not the government of Nigeria that created that committee, it's also a group of people called Conversational School of Philosophy that decided to do that and then to take it as a proposal to the Ministry of Education to integrate critical thinking. Beginning from primary school, nursery, I think my own was nursery school. The proposal I gave to them was nursery. I worked on nursery. Another group worked on primary school, and I worked on secondary school. So that was how we worked on that. And of course, and you remember that there's a saying that what nature did not give you, you need to create it yourself. If Nigeria, if colonial inheritance or heritage have left a lot of things that derail us today, I think that we can also forge it, we can also turn it to our advantage. All it takes is responsibility. All it takes is for us to understand this internal division and be able to, look each other in the face using the basic, what I would call the lowest common principle that applies to every part of Africa, and that is that humanity that is being emphasized. In South Africa, they call it Ubuntu. In Nigeria down east, it is called Mato or one year. In Yoruba land, you have something we call it. In Ghana, they call it something. So there is, although in these different African cultural contexts, French context, or Portuguese context, or Deutsche context, or English context, they have a common principle of humanity. If we can come and have that lowest common principle, we can overcome the disadvantages or the heritages left behind by colonial whatever that we may call it. So with that, I will end that in a note of that our issue today is how to deal, not just with persecution of Christians, but to stop this senseless, brutal, violent death that is happening, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa, of course, in the globe at large. So as we all participated in this discussion, I'm sure you must have taken something with you, the change we want. Frank said that, the change we want, let us be that change. So as we step out, touch each other, it doesn't matter your color, it doesn't matter your religion, that we need to emphasize on humanity. And if you have, in a way of supporting Nigeria, it will be to support, to find a way to spread the good news of Nigeria and saying Nigeria needs a good government. Tell your government. If you are a German, tell your German government Nigeria needs a good government. If you're an American watching this online, tell your government Nigeria needs a good government. If you are from France watching this online, tell your government that Nigeria needs a good government. Because if 200 million people are displaced in Nigeria, no place in the world is safe. They will climb the wall and enter that country. They will swim the ocean and enter that country. They will break every barrier and enter that country. So the best is for us to make it not to happen. Not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. Thank you, my panelists. So much for your time. I know you have some engagement, but it's good to have you on board. This conversation is going to continue, and you're going to be part of that continuation because you are a resource person that you cannot just let go. And thank you, Dr. Sylvester, Dr. Farah Sylvester. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Thank you, Nemeka. Thank you, my audience. And thank you very much.